Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, my fine friends. Welcome to episode 7 of season 10 of the Tom Petty Project podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Brown. This is the weekly podcast that digs into the entire Tom Petty catalogue, song by song, album by album, and includes conversations with musicians, fans, and people connected with Tom along the way. Last week's show focused on Only a Broken Heart, and as always, I really enjoyed reading your feedback on social media. On Facebook, my pal Pete Nestor from the Honest and Merciful Record Review podcast commented, "I loved your analysis and the conversation with Randy was very revealing." Thanks so much, Pete. I was also glad you pushed back on the inclusion of Tom's guitar solo, which sounds fragmented and a little off/disjointed. For an album that was so meticulously crafted, it had to be a purposeful choice, as you argued. Would a delicate Mike Campbell solo have sounded better? Yes, but art isn't always pretty. And despite loving Only a Broken Heart, and probably actually not wanting Mike C to play a delicate solo there, I think it's important to be as objective as possible whenever it's warranted. It's good to be honest and unmerciful, if you will. So thanks, Pete. Nora Hayward Olsen says, "A beautiful song that I don't play too often, as it is just too sad. Up to this point in his career, I will say it seems to be Tom at his most vulnerable." And we get more vulnerability on later albums, obviously, but this one definitely feels like a scab being pulled from a fresh wound. I did take a little flack from Laura Jean this week for being a bit grandiloquent in my oratorical conjecture. She wrote, "I'm a very simple person, and when you start getting technical like that, I don't even like to read or listen to that kind of stuff. It's just like talk English and make it plain so that people can understand it. But I can understand when you were a journalist, you have to make all those words sound flowery and eloquent." Now, I'd point out straight away, Laura Jean, that I'm not a journalist, but I do love words and language, and I think that sometimes I feel the responsibility to express myself with more florid prose to match the thought and diligence that Tom employed when writing his words. So, apologies if I lost you a little. I shall attempt to elucidate my musings with less pretentious aspect for the foreseeable. Over on Instagram, at The Rushton commented, "No one will guess your score for this one. Great breakdown of the song, playing bits of the track made a nice change." Hey, thanks so much again. I do hope that, obviously my dream is that one day I can maybe get the blessing of the estate to use the music in the podcast regularly to highlight sections or moments that I think are interesting or unique or whatever. When we're talking about these moments, it'll be great to have them in the episode. And I think it was a little erratic in my commentary and subsequent rating, but hopefully it all made sense at the end. Now, speaking of ratings, the 5 for 5 perfect guest of this season, Lisa Kelly Pennington, might not be commenting for a little while, as she writes, "I'm in Ghana right now, but I'm going to try to keep up. If it doesn't work out, I'll be a couple of weeks late, so no spoilers." You got it, Lisa. I won't give you my scores ahead of you listening. Stay safe, and I hope you have a fabulous time in Ghana. To close out our social media, over on Twitter, that stout red devil, Steve Ursel, commented, "This track was the one that fully hooked me into Wildflowers. It's one of the saddest songs I've ever heard. The 'Don't be afraid' line, along with the chord change, just makes me want to cry." In terms of raw emotional impact, it's the hardest hitting song on the album. And I love that this was the swing vote, if you will, for Steve on this album. For me, it was definitely the title track the first time I listened, "Don't Fade on Me" the next, and then "Crawling Back to You" the third time. We all find different ways into different albums, and I love Steve's comment that this was his. I also love that observation that "Don't Be Afraid" lines up with that E7 chord. It's a great little switch up to lead that first line to the second, or lead the pre-chorus into the chorus. And if you didn't listen to the episode yet, my guest Randy and I had a little bit of a discussion about what we would call the verse and what we'd call the chorus in Only a Broken Heart. And you know what they say about tomatoes and tomatoes. Well, that's social media done for another week, so it's time to get our Southern rock on and talk a little honeybee. In the liner notes for Wildflowers and All the Rest, engineer Jim Scott remarks that Tom would write a song like Honeybee on the spot and the band would just follow him. There are dozens of recordings just starting a song and making it up from top to bottom, coming up with funny lyrics. And of course, there are plenty of deep cut or inside examples of this that are well known to us hardcore fans, such as Juju Beads or the more widely loved Girl on LSD, but immediately, Honeybee is different. Whereas those songs they're all about the playfully silly lyrics, Honeybee also has a propulsive, irresistible groove to go along with it. The song was a mainstay on the Wildflowers tour, and in the band's 2008 setlist, played 139 times overall. Tom tells author Paul Zolo in Conversations with Tom Petty that, "I get so many requests for Honeybee. People just love it." And what's not to love from the very start? With Tom fooling around in his intro, this song is just fun. To open things up, we have Tom leaning into a character voice with that devilish lead in. All right, here we go. It's a little number called Give Me Some Sugar, Little Honey, Natural Bee. And there's all sorts of feedback static underneath that spoken word, and which I suspect was, added in for effect later on. And I'll also admit that the first time I heard this song or this lyric, I thought that it might be Tom referring to the key that the song is in. But the song is in A, not B, natural or otherwise, with the first note being played on that open low E string. That riff blazes into your headphones, panned fully right, and I love that in the Wildflowers and all the rest liner notes, the guitar parts are specifically indicated as Tom right side and Mike left side. What I absolutely adore about that long guitar riff intro is how close to falling off the rails it is tempo-wise. I'd be very, very surprised if that was played to a click track, because it almost feels as if Tom is fighting to keep the pace down and barely holding that time together. Of course, he isn't rushing it along, but it feels like he is because of where he's getting slightly ahead of the beat, very deliberately. And my guess is that Steve Ferroni just counted the take in on the sticks and then Tom took over. That's how you get that very raw, dirty feel to this opening section. For me, though, on top of that killer riff is one of my favorite drum fills in all of rock and roll. And an interesting thing about that is that it sounds like it may actually have been Stan Lynch who came up with the unusual timing or placement of that fill. Ben Montench's recollection is that I remember we first did it with Stanley on drums at Mike's house before Rick Rubin became involved. I just loved the way Stanley put the drum fill in an unexpected place and really made the song happen. Now, what he means by this is that the fill starts and ends mid-bar. And usually a drum fill will end on the one of the next bar, often with a big cymbal hit to really punch into the main progression of a song. But in Honeybee, that fill starts on the 3-and of the 4th bar of the first phrase and ends on the 2-and of the first bar of the next phrase. It's a mad place to put a drum fill, and it's so rewarding and immense fun to play. It's also, as a drummer, extraordinarily hard not to hit that snare so hard that you feel like you might destroy your drum kit. The other thing you might not notice about that fill is that Steve Ferroni plays 3 flams to close out that first 4 bars before using the 4 straight snare notes to lead into the riff again. Tench comments in his notes that, I don't know if Steve Ferroni had the same instincts or if Tom had played the demo for him or what. And my guess is the latter. And I only say this because the placement of that fill is so unusual and so specific that it would be an almost unbelievable coincidence for 2 different drummers to come up with it in the same song. What I would be willing to bet, however, is that it was Steve who came up with the alternation of the flams and the single notes. On the alternate version from the Finding Wildflowers release, Ferroni plays snare, kick, kick, snare, kick, snare, snare, but that pattern in the same place. So I suspect that Stan found that unusual placement of 7 notes, and Steve played a few takes around it to find exactly the right shape. And while that snare, kick, kick, snare, kick, snare, snare pattern is great, it's slightly busier than it needs to be. So adding those flams, then the single notes, gives variety, but doesn't detract from the aggressive repetition of the snare to lead into the song. And being the enormous drum nerd that I am, I would love to know if there was a conversation about whether to keep the final take simple or go with a more elaborate version. I'd have to give this some thought, but I'd say that the intro to this song is one of the top 10 best in the Petty catalogue. And when it comes right down to brass tacks, it'd just be the best. I've already spent more time talking about this opening 4 and a bit bars than I have about any other intro, I would guess. Anyway, once the full band kicks in, Mike Campbell joins the fray in the left channel, doubling up on the main riff. Howie Epstein further adds to this underlining by playing the riff also on the bass guitar, with Steve Ferroni's ferocious backbeat knitting it all together. We also have some cowbell adding dimension to the percussion in the song and switching between on the beat and off at different times. According to the liner notes, this was most likely added by Lenny Castro as a later overdub. And I'd be astonished if the rest of the song wasn't basically a live take with only the vocals dubbed on later. It has such a live feel to it. The first verse begins right on the 1. Come on now, give me some sugar, little honeybee. And whenever I hear that line, I'm always reminded of the classic Evil Dead 3 Army of Darkness, when Bruce Campbell says, give me some sugar, baby, completely straight-faced. And if you've never seen that movie, I can't recommend it highly enough. If you like the sense of humor in this song, it will be right up your alley. Listen for that big nasty hat lift on there now from Ferroni too. Everything about this song is just dripping with grease. It coats the lazy riff, the slow groove, and especially the guitar tones. Mike Campbell's playing those buzzing stings on the left, and Ben Montench is following the riff on piano, mixed very, very low in the right channel. After the first verse with Tom drawling and leering all over the melody line, we get 8 bars of the riff. Could that be snipped down to 4 bars? Sure. Could something have been added here? something different, sure. But you know what? That riff is so good that you really don't mind the repetition at all. In the second verse, we get more squealing and squelching from Mike in that left channel, including a great bit of harmonic dissonance right about the 119, just after the word B. And we get that huge southern drawl on the word mama, where he stretches out that first syllable to breaking point. This verse leads into the chorus section, or at least the B section. And this song almost has like, it feels like an inverted structure somewhat, given the title line is in the verse rather than the chorus, but it definitely is verse, verse, chorus. But from that first full chord of the chorus, we get a change in the rhythm and that ascending chord progression. In the Wildflowers and All the Rest liner notes, Mike Campbell says, my favorite line in that song is, I'm the boy in short pants. At the time, all these bands from Seattle were wearing short pants. I think that was the dig right there. But I love the duality in that line, as it could also be taken as referring to the protagonist being quite young. And the other thing I love about that line is the way that Tom really clips each word. He doesn't roll the words boy and in together, as would be natural, but really punches each syllable home. Marvelous. There's also that very Ron Blair-esque slide up the neck on the bass from Howie in between the two halves of the verse, and you can hear the piano a little more clearly in this section too. I think there might even be a little distortion out of that piano because, this song isn't greasy enough by half. May as well slather the piano with some effects too. The chorus then ends with 2 extra bars and one final step up in the progression before that pistol crack snare leads into the bridge and solo. The bridge section starts with that double guitar riff and some extra percussion, I think on a shaken tambourine, and of course, the cowbell. We're also treated to some of the best off-the-cuff lyrical riffing in the entire catalogue. Who doesn't love Tom saying "buzz a wow," which is spoken directly to the object of the song, but also to Mike Campbell, who buzzes one of the wildest solos on the record. The tone of Mike's guitar almost sounds like he's being routed through a Leslie amp at this point. There's a very slight warble or wobble to it. And of course, that could just be Mike using his whammy bar for that tone, and that's actually probably more likely. But it's a great, overdriven, slightly flanged tone that Mike leans into and really makes howl. This bridge/solo section is broken up into 2 passages of 8 bars, with the first 8 being that riff with Tom speaking over top, and the second being Mike's solo with more riffing from Tom. $20, $30, $150. There's no indication at all as to what that's referring to, and it doesn't matter a jot. We don't care, because again, the song is just so much fun. It's actually incredibly cool that Tom doesn't pack this song with a bunch of meaning, because you don't really want to think about some sort of deep or profound idea when you're listening to a track that cooks as hot as this. Okay, folks, it's time once more for a little petty trivia. Your question from last week was this. Phil Jones appears on the Back Up the Plantation live album on 4 tracks, including Insider, also featuring Stevie Nicks. But which other track on Hard Promises does Stevie sing backing vocals on? Is it A, The Waiting, B, Letting You Go, C, You Can Still Change Your Mind, or D, King's Road? The answer to this one is C, You Can Still Change Your Mind. As well as Nicks, her longtime friend and backing vocalist Sharon Solani feature on the Hard Promises album closer. On Insider, the vocals are provided by Nicks and her other long-standing vocal backup, Laurie Nicks. Backing vocals on the rest of the Hard Promises album are provided by Tom and Stan Lynch. Hard Promises also features 2 additional contributions by Bugs Wydell and Phil Jones. But who played bass on track 2 from the album, A Woman in Love? Is it A, Ron Blair, B, Duck Dunn, C, Mike Campbell, or D, Howie Epstein? Okay, back to the song. Out of the solo, we head straight back into the last verse, and there isn't a big dynamic switch here. We just get the same low-slung, bluesy riff with Tom's drawl over top. Look here now, peace in the valley with my honey bee. This is followed by probably the most Dylan-esque lyric Tom ever wrote. I'm a big fan of Bob's 3 albums after he went electric, and I think the dizzyingly abstract nature of his lyrics on Highway 61 Revisited, in particular, are the benchmark for how you write nonsense, but still make them look and sound great. In Tombstone Blues, Dylan riffs, and dropping a barbell, he points to the sky saying, "The sun's not yellow, it's chicken." Don't go looking for deeper meaning in that line. People have retrospectively applied a cowardice angle to it with the link between yellow and chicken, but I suspect that the combination of words just really appealed to Bob's sense of humor. The last chorus in this song is a similarly brilliant piece of esoteric nonsense prose. She gave me her monkey hand and a Rambler sedan. I'm the king of Milwaukee. The Juju Beads are so nice. She kissed my third cousin twice. I'm the king of Pomona. Well, I got something to say, yeah. Tom tells Arthur Polzolo, "Where does it come from? I don't know where I got I'm the king of Pomona." I wanted it to be like that. I wanted it to be one part gibberish, where it would be clear to anyone that I'm not taking this too seriously. I'm just having some fun here. So it was just a little fun with words. Kissed my third cousin twice. And then at that point in the book, it indicates that he laughs. And this comes back to what I suggested earlier, that it's important for these lyrics to be abstract and to be taken lightly. This song is meant to be a palate cleanser after the relative heft of the album so far, and particularly the fathomless depths of the preceding two songs. Tom underscores this, telling Polzolo, "It was meant to be a release from getting overly serious, because some of those songs get pretty deep, and I think it's good to have something that clears the mind for a minute. Let's rock for a second and not get overly seriously here." You know what, Tom? Mission accomplished. The song ends with the main riff coming in again for 8 bars before Mike Campbell takes his second buzzsaw solo, with Ben Montenchi's piano now playing a stabbing 8th note rhythm in a higher octave. After the first 8 bars of this solo, we hear Tom say, "Do it again," so Mike Campbell obliges. Tom himself then takes the spotlight and shreds an equally tasty, blues-drenched solo in that right channel. We hear the dollar count rise to 200 before the solo's cut out, and we go back to the straight riff to finish. The song ends on the kick, flam, kick, and splash, and the decay of that last chord then fades out. And if you've ever wondered what that weird clicking sound is at the 4:46 mark, I'm pretty sure that that's Mike Campbell switching his pickup selector, which is, the actual movement of the switch itself is picked up on a close mic, as well as the tonal change you get from that switch being toggled. There's some tambourine noise and the strings being plucked behind the bridge, and overall that general sense of relief you feel after a storm has passed. You're wound down and guided out gently. There is, of course, a legendary performance of this song on Saturday Night Live on November 19th, 1994. After being introduced by John Turturro, the band rips into a quicker tempo rendition of the song with a young drummer behind the kit who would release his own band's debut record only 9 months later. He tells the story like this. "Dave, there's a phone call for you. Tom Petty wants to know if you'll play drums for him on Saturday Night Live." Foo Fighters would go on to become one of the biggest live rock acts in the world, but at that point, Dave was sitting on a bunch of songs that he was going to record but hadn't put together yet. Wildflowers also hadn't been released at this point, so Dave listened to You Don't Know How It Feels and Honeybee ahead of the rest of the world, and then went down to LA to rehearse the songs with the band. In his fantastic memoir Storyteller, Grohl recounts, "The Heartbreakers were the epitome of cool. With their relaxed swagger and faint southern accents, they made me feel at home and appreciated, doing their best to disarm any nerves that they undoubtedly sensed I was experiencing. They were legitimate rock stars after all, and I'm sure they had this effect on most everyone, but with their kindness and empathy, they wanted to make me feel comfortable." And that says a lot to me, that they recognized that, even the guy who had risen to the top of the world with Nirvana might not be 100% at ease walking into a setup like this. It's worth remembering that at this point, Mike and Tom would have been 44 years old and Dave a mere 25. So there's a full generational gap there that could have been difficult. But Grohl continues, "And then there was Tom. He was just as I'd imagined him to be, totally laid back and effortlessly cool. And when he said hello, that voice of 1,000 high school dances flowed from his mouth like thick molasses. Within a few minutes, any nerves that I had from this rock and roll fantasy camp daydream had faded. We began to play." And that is the main thing that you learn from listening to musicians talk about playing with their idols. At the end of the day, musicians, or really good, really authentic ones, just want to play. And as long as you know what you're doing and you're a good hang, it doesn't matter if you're a Beatle, a Heartbreaker, or a scruffy punk from Virginia via Seattle. Grohl was offered the drum solo on a permanent basis after the gig, but ended up declining, feeling that he really wanted to play his own songs and not someone else's. But says the following about Tom in his book. "Petty was one of my favorite artists ever, a musical hero to millions of young suburban misfits like me. So the fact that he even knew my name was a lot to take in. And as has been said countless times, this was one of Tom's secret weapons, his ability to make people feel seen and appreciated. You hear it all the time. for such a consistent degree that you have to accept it at face value as being true. Today's guest conversation is the most special one I've done so far. I've spoken to some fantastic musicians for this show, and I've spoken to two men who've written seminal first-hand accounts of Tom's life and work. I've chatted with all kinds of fans, and I've enjoyed every single minute of every conversation I've had. But today I'm chatting to one of the people I love most in the whole world, my youngest daughter, Emma. When I asked her if she wanted to be one of my guests for this season, she agreed a little tentatively, but when I asked her to pick a song from the album, her answer was immediate. So we'll dive into Honeybee, as well as where our musical tastes overlap, as well as diverge. This was a wonderful conversation to have, so sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with my wonderful daughter, Emma Brown.
I am, rather unfortunately for me, Kevin Brown's daughter. I'm kidding. Quite fortunately for me. And it is an honor for me to be here, because I'm in AP English, and so I'll offer the utmost analysis of the song.
Oh, so we're going to be digging into the lyrics then, are we?
Yeah. Well, kind of. But I remember, it felt like so long ago when you first started your podcast and you told me what you plan to do with the season of Wildflowers. And then I asked to be in Honeybee, and you said, yeah, but that'll be in 2 years. And I was like, oh my God, I have to wait for 2 years. But now all of a sudden it's here, and it's crazy to think that it's been that long, but it felt so short of the time.
Well, before we start digging specifically into Honeybee and talking about Wildflowers a little bit, why don't we tell people a little bit about sort of, growing up, obviously, I'm your dad. So music has always been a big part of my life. So it's ended up being a big part of your life. And I don't think we've ever really talked all that much about, when you were growing up, was the stuff that I listened to that you sort of thought, oh, God, I don't listen to this anymore. What were the things that you sort of really liked, and what were the sort of things that you didn't like that I would play?
I think I liked most of the stuff more because it was what I was exposed to, you know what I mean? I feel like the more you're exposed to something, not always, obviously, there's a chance you can hate it, but often what you're most exposed to tends to be what you like the most, because it reminds you of what you're familiar with, your family, whatever. And so I think most of the songs I can think of, I remember it fondly, and I still like them. I think I have a bit of a mix of yours and Mom's memory, where it's really bad like yours sometimes, and then very good at other times Mom's. And with songs is when that really shows, is because I can have, as tied to songs, I have very, very vivid memories of driving to PA, driving to Regina. And so that, but I can't honestly name a song that I don't like, that I didn't like. I'm sure there was something I was like, oh my God, this again, because we would have listened to this. We had a PA playlist, and so or even Mom did. So we would have listened to some songs so many times that it would have gotten repetitive, but I can't actually name a song.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, okay, but let's go through some of the bands then, so people know the kind of music, apart from Tom, they listen to. I mean, obviously, we're doing this via Zoom because I'm away for work right now. So we're talking over the internet, and over your right shoulder, I can see the photos of John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr.
Yeah. My music taste, I think, is, I was going to say more broad than yours, but that's actually not true, because you also have quite a broad music taste. Although mine branches out into music that I know you really don't like. And here's my thing is, for me, music, I kind of think of there's a split for me. There's music that is just no matter whether you actually enjoy it or not. I think for anyone, it's hard to look at this kind of music, like Tom Petty's music, and for them to say that it's not well written. The lyrics, the way the guitar goes, you don't have to like the way it sounds. Maybe it's just, you don't vibe with it, whatever. But I think any person who actually knows music, it would be hard for them to argue that it's not well constructed. Whereas there's another side of music where it's catchy, it's simple, thousand other songs like it, but it works because it's what the mass people tend to gravitate towards. And so I have a mix of both because mom has a very different taste in music too. So it's like two separate worlds for me. And so I listen to like more, and for what I mean by mom's taste in music, I'd say like 80s disco, club dancing music is what she likes, for being fully honest. The song Obsession by, and I don't know who it's by. You hate the song, but like that's kind of her vibe. And so I think of those songs, I listen to them because of the nostalgia. Reminds me of like 2017 to 2016. And then your side is what I would say is like good music. It's what I'm most proud of liking. So I'd say, yeah, Beatles, I have up on my wall. I think obviously one of the most influential bands, one of the most important bands of all time. I'm looking at my room. I also have Alice Cooper photos. That was one of the first ever rock concerts I went to. And so I think the storytelling of Cooper and the stage experience is something very unique because it's a story of the character of Alice Cooper. But I think the one closest to my heart, and you know this obviously because it's all over my room, is Iron Maiden. And so that's where it gets a bit surprising, is because you can have I, like my dad, have vinyl records and I have a wide collection. Like there's some Lana Del Rey and Melanie Martinez, which a lot of people probably listening won't know. So that goes on that range all the way to Iron Maiden, which is like on the heavier side. But yeah, so I have most of the studio albums, I think. Can't remember which ones I don't have. And then I have like figurines and those beer bottles that you drank that like had the cool Iron Maiden labels. So it's all over my room is Iron Maiden. Yeah. So
well, it's funny, right? Because there's the music side that we both love Iron Maiden, but with Iron Maiden, there's also that aesthetic side where the imagery and the world, they're one of those unique bands where they create this world that you can immerse yourself into, as well as the music, which is very different to someone like, Petty or the Beatles or, most of the rock and rolls.
I don't think many, or not many, but not as many bands could make a game like Iron Maiden did and for it to work as well as it did. You know? Like it worked so well, and that's like I could see a game working for Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
Maybe maybe not the exact side, like not the same kind of game as Iron Maiden is, but like that. But like it would be harder for So, and that's actually one of the things I'm more fond of the artist named Melanie Martinez. I mentioned her before. Haven't listened to her as much recently because she recently came out with a third album that's not my favorite. But she's another one like Alice Cooper where her albums follow a story. And so that's something I really enjoy because like Alice Cooper, again, their music is completely different, but she sets up the stage to tell the story.
Right.
Which is what Alice Cooper does. Yeah. So that's kind of like what you said, is that it's seeing an artist in concert, and same with Iron Maiden, is the last time he went, he like uncovered the gun and said, "This is an effing gun," and then started shooting at Eddie. And so, yeah, that's what Iron Maiden, very good visuals.
Well, we have obviously that shared love of rock and roll, and we both like pretty heavy rock and roll. So it wasn't really a surprise to me that you picked Honeybee from, off this album to listen to. But so what other, maybe tell people some of the other shows that we've been to together.
Oh, okay. So first one would have been Alice Cooper.
Yeah. And we were second row dead center. I'm pretty sure I remember.
There wasn't many people there. Like I will say, out of all I'm surprised, like he deserved a way bigger audience than he had. Like at the SaskTel Center. Yeah. My voice is cracked. For anyone who knows how big that is, hockey rink size. Yeah. Because it is a hockey rink. We only played half. It was set up, I remember, like only half stage. And I think, were all the seats also on the rink, or were there also seats up in the, I don't remember.
The setup was, for those people, like in a hockey arena, basically, SaskTel Center is a small hockey arena, probably seats about 15,000 when it's full. And so they had the screen across center ice. So like half the building was being used. And then I would say that there were seats on the ice, or where the ice would have been, which is where we were. And then the first level first level seats were open, and then I'm pretty sure, if I remember rightly, the top level was curtained off. So my guess is there were probably about 3,500 to 4,000 people, maybe around about that sort of crowd.
Which is crazy to me, because like, I mean, I guess it's just, I don't know, public interest or whatever. Maybe it's the fact that it was in Saskatoon, because obviously, like, you're not going to be able to find, what's the one in Edmonton, Rogers Centre? Is that the hockey rink? You're not going to find a rink that big here.
Yeah.
But I feel like to me, Alice Cooper deserves way bigger of an audience.
Yeah.
Especially for the show they put on, like, bigger stage, bigger, like, it, yeah. When I think about that and how small it was, I would like, it doesn't sit well with me. I just don't think that, and also 3,000 people's big for some artists, and like, it's still good. Like, it was a good turnout, but like, I don't know. I feel like it deserved more. So,
well, it worked out well for us though, right? Because it was such a great gig, and we were so close that, you know, we enjoyed every minute of it. And then we've been to Edmonton a couple of times to see, I think, Iron Maiden and Foo Fighters we've seen together. Yeah.
Sorry, one more thing I was going to say about the Alice Cooper concert. Sorry, I talk a lot. Another thing I liked about Alice Cooper is that people, I don't know if you remember this, people were in costumes. Like, there was like the nurse, and people came as Alice, and that was special because that's, again, not something that every band, like, you can have like a cool outfit, but like not an actual costume. Like,
I remember, remember the last time we saw Iron Maiden in Edmonton. Do you remember? You should tell people that story about what that guy was dressed as. Do you remember?
Yes. So we walked in, and we're in line for I think it was for the shirts, and someone says, "Look, it's a lobster." So this guy is dressed head to toe in a big lobster suit. And we're like, "Oh, haha, funny," walking around, whatever. Get to our seats. We had really good seats because I think we were one of the front rows on the balcony, so we had no one in front of us. You could see the entire mosh pit, but with like, immediately you just see a red dot, and it's the lobster. He's in the mosh pit, tightly packed, and even I was hot at that point. So, one building, tightly packed, just lobster. So it goes on. I don't remember if it was right at the beginning of the show or throughout the show, but all of a sudden Bruce Dickinson stops. He goes, "Is that a fucking lobster?" And then he starts talking about the lobster. And then I think he said, "This is for you." Like, he dedicated one of the songs to the lobster man.
Yeah.
And so, So I don't know what prompted that person, but I think that's something that I bet you Bruce Dickinson went home. Does he have a wife? I think he's married.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought so. I think, like, obviously so many shows, it's relatively the same experience. That's definitely something that I think he would have gone home and told his wife about. That he saw a lobster in the crowd.
You'll never guess what was in the crowd tonight. A lobster.
Yeah. So
and I think that's the, you know, it's the same thing when I took your sister to see Foo Fighters, and it was when Dave Grohl broke his leg. It's those unique moments in shows that's what makes live music special, right? Because, you know, otherwise we would just sit and listen to the record. But when you go to a show and something mad like that happens, that's what makes that sort of shared experience. And we've got that memory now of, like, no one else on that tour would have that exact same memory of seeing some nutter in a lobster outfit getting called out by Bruce Dickinson, right? So
yeah.
Okay, well, I was gonna say, like, so we do have a lot of musical taste that overlap, and we talked a little bit about some of the ones where, you know, you said Lana Del Rey, Melody Martinez, who I don't hate, like, I don't dislike, it's just not something I would tune into. And there was that new album you just bought. There was that one song that you sent me. Who was that again?
So that's Marina and the Diamonds.
Right.
So I got the album, The Family Jewels, and she's not your taste, but there's a few more songs off that album that I actually want to send you, because while it's not exactly your taste, it's different. Like, I don't like music where you could listen to it and think, oh, that might be this person, but also might be this person. It could also be this person. Like, I like when you hear her voice. You said she has a very unique way of singing. I like that when you hear her voice, when I hear her music, I know it's her, you know? And it's just, you're not going to listen to it and think, oh, I've heard a song like this before, because it's unique.
Well, that's a good segue then into talking a little bit more about Tom, because Tom Petty's got a very distinctive voice too, and there's not everyone loves it. I mean, I did want a conversation with my friend Scott Haskin for this podcast on the Petty 8, And one of the things that he had a problem listening to was, he said, I just don't like that sort of nasal delivery that Tom Petty has, which is, of course, it's mad to me because, I love it. But
see, unfortunately, I think you can no longer be friends with that man because that is crazy. That is one of my notes, was that, like, Tom Petty, he's one of the artists. I was also thinking, like, Chris Cornell. I think that's the singer of Audio Slave. Yeah. Okay. Like, I'm thinking the right person. Like, he's like Tom Petty in the sense that you hear his voice and you're like, oh, I know who that is.
Yeah, immediately.
Like, and that's something that, like, and like I said, like, I'm not a big, you know this, I hate country music. Pop country, I can get behind some country, but my big problem is the way they sing. And so that's what surprised me about the fact that I like Tom Petty's voice, is he just does it in a way that no other, like, I feel like he's what all those other people are trying to be, Not necessarily, like, I'm not saying that he's the influencer of all of them. He actually can do it. Like, he does it in a way that is satisfactory to me, in which I find it very hard to find another singer who can sing in that way, and for me to not just, When
I think it's because, when Petty does it, or a guy you don't know really, Steve Earle, when they sing with a bit of a southern drawl, it's because that's their accent, that's their voice,
exactly.
and they're not putting it on there. It's not artificial and it's not contrived, right? Like, that's what they sound like. So when it's real, then that's what's attractive about it.
Yeah,
I think.
And like, you look at Tom Petty and you hear his voice, you're like, yeah, of course,
matches.
Like, you see some of these like pop country guys, and then you like hear the voice, and it's like, okay, and then you see the artist is like some wee little guy who looks like he's 21. Like, okay, but I can guarantee you that's not your actual voice. And so that's when it gets a bit, but like for Tom Petty, it works because it's natural. It's, it's not.
Well, you've heard that, Bo Burnham, right? Do you know Bo Burnham, the comedian, I'm assuming?
I've heard a few of his songs.
Because he does a song, I can't remember what it was called, but he does a song where he's making fun of country, and he puts the drawl on. And what's funny about that song is, and folks, listeners, if you haven't heard that, I'll put a link in the episode notes. You should go listen to it, because it's kind of scary how much all pop country sounds exactly like the song making fun of pop country.
Yeah.
So,
See, that's the thing. If you can, like, if your entire genre, like, if your entire what you're doing with your music, if that sense, that's not grammatically correct, but like, hope it makes some sort of sense. If what you plan to like do with your music, and what the essence of your music is, can be surmised by a joking video like that, if it makes you happy, whatever floats your boat. But you cannot be thinking that you're revolutionary writing that kind of music.
Yeah. Well, that's where, it's my problem. No, I shouldn't say problem, but it's the one area with Taylor Swift that I struggle with. We've been she's lauded as sort of the queen of pop and all this kind of stuff, and she's doing that style of pop music better than anyone else right now. I think that's probably true. However, she hasn't changed her art form at all. She hasn't done anything. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I might have misinterpreted. I'm going to start by saying I am actually not a Taylor Swift supporter at all. In fact, I need to be careful with what I say, because Swifties are at, like, the pop, there's something wrong with them. Must say that. Taylor can do no wrong in their eyes, which is absolutely crazy. But I don't like her music, and I have a few main problems there. What you said, she doesn't change anything, like, of the art of pop. You're completely right. Like, you can hear a bass line. The only reason I actually know it's her music, because I know her voice, and it's not because it's distinctive, it's just because I've heard it my entire life, everywhere. But another thing I have problem with music, or problem with Taylor Swift and her music, is that there's a noticeable shift from the first, would it be 3 albums?
Right.
And then people said that her music was too pop to be country, and so she did a complete shift, which is whatever you want. You're trying to sell your career. But for me, like, I guarantee you, if someone said to Tom Petty, oh, like, we don't really like your music, it sounds more like this genre, he would not be switching up like that. He does it. No. Loves music, it's in his heart. And I think from what she does says in interviews and kind of the way she performs, she enjoys it, and it's good. But I think that it's not like in her soul as much as it is with Tom Petty,
right?
Because it's not. Yeah, it seems less, especially her album Midnight. I've heard, which is one of the newer ones. Heard from a lot of people who like Taylor Swift, love her, that it just seems that she didn't put her heart and soul into it like she seems to do their other albums.
Right.
And so that's like, yeah. So I don't know. I think I was just rambling, but my overall thing is that you can tell she loves her music and she writes about her life in her music, but it just does not feel as nearly as connected as Tom Petty does to his.
Well, and that's where, when we start talking now then about Wildflowers, I mean, you're probably not aware then as much of what was going on in Tom Petty's life when he wrote this record. So at this time, his marriage was basically falling apart. Like it was pretty much over, and to the point that actually his daughter, Adria, his eldest daughter, who would have been, I think, 20 or 21 when this album came out, said that as soon as she heard this record, she knew that her parents' marriage was over. Because she could sort of hear these undercurrents when you talk about, a song like Only a Broken Heart or some of the other songs on the record where you think that's Tom, when you talk about connection to music and sort of having that sort of, believing, I think is what it comes down to, believing what the artist's singing.
Yeah.
You can hear it come through in these songs, right? Now, Wildflowers, I know, isn't an album that, and we should tell our listeners that you like Tom Petty, and I'm pretty sure that The Greatest Hits was the first album you bought after you had your record player. The first album you bought with your own money was Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm pretty sure Petty's Greatest Hits was the second, I think. Certainly one of the very first.
I got Tom Petty and then my Yellow Submarine picture disc at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Got it from Sunrise Records.
Yeah, so you're sort of that's where I would sort of categorize you as more or less a sort of a Greatest Hits Tom Petty fan. But anytime really I've played any Tom Petty for you, you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's the thing, is I regularly listen to the album that I have on vinyl in a playlist. And that's when I regularly listen to, I'd say, Greatest Hits. But I've never once heard a Tom Petty song and thought, okay, wait, actually, you know exactly what I'm about to say.
We can talk about that, yeah.
I've never once, with this one exception, which I'm about to explain, heard a Tom Petty song and went, that's not for me. Always, I've just always vibed, I guess, with Tom Petty music. The one exception is not, I think I can't remember before the incident, but, I'm assuming, I don't remember hating it until, I don't know, I think my mom, she knew of it before. She said she, used to dance to it or whatever.
Yeah.
But she must have heard it when you were on your Tom Petty kick when it started again. And so she played it over and over and over and every single time in the car with her, whenever we're playing music, oh, Kev, can you play Tom Petty? Don't come around here no more. And I can't. I hear I don't know why I haven't deleted it off my phone playlist, but every time I hear it, I'm like, nope, skip. I can't. I will get up from my desk and come and skip it on my record. It's just, I can't. I heard it so many times that it ruined it for me.
Yeah. And there's lots of songs like that, right? I mean, there's lots of Queen fans who don't listen to Bohemian Rhapsody anymore. In fact, we just covered that on my other podcast. We just covered that song this past week. And some of the comments are, it's a great song, but I never want to hear it again. There are certain songs that when they get overplayed like that, it just ruins it for you. And that's perfectly fine. You're more than entitled to. There's one Tom Petty song you don't like, that's fine, right? And they'll probably, and you know what? If you listen to the entire catalogue, there probably would be more. But if we talk about Wildflowers, it's one of the little sort of assignments I'd set you, is just have a quick look through Wildflowers and see what are the songs that are on the album that you know and that you like. So what about Wildflowers generally from what you know of it? What are your impressions?
Well, what are my impressions? To me, like you said, he's going through a hard time in his life. Now, I haven't listened to all of the albums extensively. I'm not the Tom Petty expert here. I was kind of relying on you having more of that background information. But I've always thought that Wildflowers seems to be particularly special to Tom.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard him say that. I don't know if he said it.
More or less. Yeah, more or less.
It feels different. And the only reason I could say is that it just, I actually can't really necessarily say why it feels different. I think he probably, like you said, is going a hard time in his life. It just feels like it means something a little bit more to him than maybe the first few albums that he did, especially at a point when because this is I don't know why I want to say it's his 7th album, probably completely incorrect.
10th. Yeah, 10th.
Okay. You know what? Only 3 away. Better than I thought I'd do. It's his 10th album. He's well established in his career.
Yeah.
That's the time when you don't have to be quite as like people pleasing, which I don't think he's never necessarily been one to do that, or at least doesn't give me an impression that he has been one to do that. But especially later on in your career, that's when you can afford to make music that speaks to you, even if it doesn't necessarily speak as much to other people.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely spot on with that. I mean, that's a really good observation. Very prescient, because we talk about that a lot in petty fandom. And it's one thing where I've sort of said that the last album before this sort of kickstarts the second half of his career. But it's an observation that I've made with other guests that with Wildflowers, that was the start of Tom only writing songs essentially for himself and not really, there's going to be a single because there's going to be something that resonates and all that kind of stuff. But he's not writing with that mindset. He's writing, okay, I'm going to write the best song I can write for me and for the band. And then, and because he knows he's got fans, if he's being his authentic self and writing from that sort of that place, they'll come along for the ride, right?
Yeah. And that's like I said he doesn't necessarily, like, as long as it's for him, it doesn't really matter, but I still think, even though this album would be more for him, I think it almost definitely won the hearts of so many people. Like, I think it's your favorite album, or one of your, okay, I was right. I would say so.
I mean, my favorite Tom Petty album, but it's definitely in my favorite top 5 albums of all time, for sure. Yeah.
Like I said, Tom Petty's just a person that he just gets it. I don't even know if he knows that he gets it or if he knows how he gets it, but he does. This album is a perfect example of that, because it's everything you want, and it fulfills all its roles perfectly. I'll say that.
Well, and it's funny because it's kind of cool because there's a lot of weight, as there's a way to describe it. There's a lot of weight on this album, but you need these moments of a little bit of levity and a little bit of lightness just to kind of lift it up again. And Tom talks about this in his interview with Paul Zolo, saying that, you can't all be heavy, 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 heavy. So this is one of those songs where, well, you know what? The Heartbreakers can rock out, man. Let's just do a blues rock number and let's just have some fun with it. So Honeybee, obviously, and again, like I remember when I talked to you about this, you immediately said Honeybee. You didn't pause, you didn't hesitate, you immediately said, because I knew that you loved this song. What is it about this song that grabs you?
There's so much that grabs me, and this is when, so I'd say, what everyone I think would immediately grab everyone is the guitar, the swing, I don't know, like, it's just, it is one of the most, to me, it's not, I wouldn't say that it's well known across the world. It's one of the most recognizable, but to me, it deserves to be one of the most iconic guitar riffs or chord structures there, because it's just, there's something that itches my brain just right about it. Like it feels like yes, that's one of the things. Like, again, it's just so perfectly satisfying that really, I feel like there's, some artists when making a song, they might think, oh, I could do this or I could do this. This song the guitar has to be done like this for it to be so amazing, in my opinion. So I love the guitar riff. Another thing that draws me to the song, and I wrote it in my notes, all I wrote was, I love a good cowbell. I wish that more songs had cowbells in them. I can't explain I just am so drawn towards sounds of cowbells. I never told you this, but In my job, I work as a rental caretaker, so I go to a bunch of different schools. And one of the schools had a music room that was right beside the caretaking room. And so I was bored. I was also trying not to fall asleep because I had to wake up early in the morning, and sitting in a room for like hours on end is the perfect time to sleep, but you can't. So I went to the music room, just had a little fiddle around, and made cowbells, and I tried out every single one because they were different sizes. And it was just, they weren't the most high quality because obviously it was an elementary school music room, but still. So I think, and the cowbell especially is what reminds me of Ragdoll by Aerosmith, which I'm pretty sure has a cowbell, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, okay. And the guitar too, not for the fact that they're necessarily the same guitar riff or not necessarily the guitar sounds the same, but it gives the same kind of feeling, and it gives the same kind of like, I don't want to say sleazy, but it's very like, it's
greasy.
a certain mood. Yeah,
it's greasy. It's greasy, man. It's greasy and it's slouchy and it's lazy and that's what makes it cool, I think. Yeah, for sure.
So this song has always given me Ragdoll vibes, and I think another thing that I love about this song, I don't know, do you want to talk? Am I talking too much?
No, you go ahead. This is about you, not me.
Okay. This is what I call my AP English analysis section. And so I was looking through, like I pulled up the lyrics while I was making my notes. And for me, this song is big on imagery, which is a part of diddles. Stupid name, which is diction, imagery, details, language, and syntax.
Okay.
Awful thing that you constantly have to do in AP English, and I hate it. But it did kind of help with this, because one of the big things about imagery in this song is that for me, it brings me, I've never lived in this time. I'm not like, it brings me, I imagine a teenage boy singing this for some reason. I think it just gives mostly some of the lyrics. Yeah. And like hot summer day going in the 80s, and then like just kind of, and the things that when I looked at the lyrics and I kind of looked up what they were, because I don't know what everything is because I'm not old like you are. And so Rambler Sedan, I looked it up, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, why not? Like, that makes perfect sense for the song. The Juju Beads, which would be like a bracelet, makes sense from the type of girl would be describing. That it is the type of girl you'd sing this song about would wear that. Like, it's 100%. And then the, like, obviously this is a Tom Petty thing, and it's more of like a Southern thing, but like the nothing and the doing instead of doing the D. All of that is like textual evidence. Again, AP English, textual evidence of like, it all leads you to one image, and it's like that. It all just works so well together in that image of.
There's a real consistency to it, right? And that's the thing where he doesn't mix tone. He's not sort of taking you out of it and taking you to different places tonally with the lyrics. Not sort of with the lyrics, and he's very consistent in sort of the character that is inhabiting, because that's what Petty, and we talk about this lots on the podcast, that Petty writes in character as well or better than, like, Alex Cooper does it and lots of people do it, but Petty does it a specific way. And in this song, it's on full display. Yeah, I mean, because the character in this song's got this cocky kind of swagger about it, right? Like, and it's like,
exactly.
Yeah, you're kind of goofy, but I kind of like it,
And that's why, I don't know if you remember, but when you first asked me, and I immediately said, how do you be? And I said, because I have mixed feelings about it.
Right.
And so the mixed feelings, it's not like, I kind of like it, I kind of don't fully love this song. One of my favorite songs, not of Tom Petty, but of all time. But the mixed feelings comes within the lyrics, because I talked about AP English class, which I guess some people don't know what AP means, advanced placement. So basically, you're really looking into tone of a writing piece. And so that's why, like, I love music so much, and I've always wanted to do like a music analysis for English. And so I wish we could have done that, but like, this is exactly the kind of song that you wouldn't want to bring into a class because of the insinuation of a few of the lyrics. Like, it just, like, was it Buzz Around My Tree?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like, so that's kind of thing where because of my English class, I'm always like wanting to look deeper into every single word. And so that's what makes it feel. And it's a bit like you said, it's a boy who's cocky, who's quite full of himself, who like, it makes you, for me, I'm not into that type of person. So it gives me kind of like a, okay kind of vibe. But then I'm brought back to the music and just the fact that I know it's Tom Petty.
Yeah.
And like, it's.
Well, and you know, it's a caricature, right? He's not.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is he's not. And there's lots of songs like this in his catalog that sometimes get misinterpreted. He's not saying that he speaks this way or that he thinks that that's a good way of speaking. He's playing a character. Right? It's the same as when we watch, someone play a bad guy on screen. We don't then hate the actor because that's just the role that they're playing, right?
Unless some people have done it so well that the actor gets like shat on for the rest of their lives because they're considered evil. But yeah. Like, that's the thing. Like, I think I wrote in my notes, mixed feelings, kind of sleazy, but Tom Petty still a pass. Like, it's one of those songs that you give it a pass because you know it's Tom Petty. And you can really just chalk it down to, no, he's not encouraging this. He's not saying that this is who he is. It's just an expertly written piece of work. Like, it's just...
one of the things that, and I was waiting until we got into this a little bit before I told you this, one of the funny things about this song is Tom Petty was prolific and sort of well known amongst with his bandmates for just writing silly lyrics sometimes. Like he'd literally get up and just riff something like this off the cuff one time, first time through. And this is one of those songs that they just started jamming out and he kind of just made it up as he went along. Because you look at some of the lyrics, right? You look at, she gave me her monkey hand. It doesn't mean anything. Yeah. But rhythmically it fits, tonally it fits. I'm the king of Milwaukee. And then he gets, I'm the king of Pomona. Like all these, like you said, there's the imagery there, but a lot of it is it's just a bit of light silliness in some places.
And that's what, like, I like that you said that because that leads me to one of my points is one thing that takes that perspective into it. And I think right at the beginning of the song, you're kind of giving a warning that it's almost like take this song with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Because remember, in a voice that I don't know if it's the natural, it sounds a bit like it's a silly voice. Yeah. All right, here we go. It's a little number called Give Me Some Sugar, Little Honey, Natural Beat.
Yeah.
And so our intro was so essential to the point that it puts you in the right mindset for the rest of the song where it's like, okay, this is just a good time.
Yeah.
It isn't meant to be like, oh, look at this awful guy or like, oh, look at women like this. It's meant to be, we're here to have a silly good time. Here you go. Here's the song,
Yeah.
And so that's why, like, the song wouldn't be the same without that intro because, and it's almost like the song isn't quite kicked in yet because I feel like when the guitar starts is when you really start getting into it. But that little thing's like a little appetizer. Like it's a little, it sets the mood for the rest of the song.
That's a great observation, kiddo. Really, really good observation. And I think you're right. Like it's almost that little wink at the camera that someone will give in a movie when they break the fourth wall. It's just like just stay with us on this. We're gonna have some fun now, right? Like it's that,
Especially after. Wait, what was the song? Oh, what's the song right before this one on the album?
Only a Broken Heart.
Exactly. And so Only a Broken Heart, you go through that song and you're like, oh. Well, now it's kind of sad. And then you're like, okay, come on, get up off your seats. We're going to bring it back up. Like it's, So I think it's the perfect, like, especially in like, if you think about in stories, there's like the rising action, something to bring it down or like comedic relief characters. This song almost acts as that. And it's like a break for your heart in the song, in the album.
It's a palate cleanser. Exactly what it is. Yeah. And that's where, not only is Wildflowers an incredible set of songs, and there were many more songs that, I mean, again, lots of things about this that you don't know, but all the rest, so all those songs that didn't make the final cut, this was the sequencing of this album, the way that the track listing runs is incredible because it does that, what you were just talking about there, sort of bringing you up and then just giving you a little bit of a break so you don't get too overwhelmed with emotion and with the content of the lyrics. It does that brilliantly. Like, and that happens numerous times, just like 2 or 3 times where there's just that little pause and say, okay, everything's not awful, Don't forget, I'm still a rock and roller.
Yeah.
You can still bounce around and tap your feet. And man, wouldn't you have loved to have seen this song live? Like, if we were gonna if we'd got to see Petty live, like, you'd be like, if you did this one, you'd just lose your mind,
Which, now that you say that, it's kind of funny because I remember, another very vivid memory. We're driving to my old school, and we were just after the first roundabout going to the second one.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of turned to me and you said, I'm kind of sad today because this artist named Tom Petty just died.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, that's too bad. And I kind of turned, and then I wanted to be like, I was sad for you because I know you were kind of glum. But I, like, really in my mind, I was like, I didn't think about it for the rest of the day because at that point in my life, I knew I had heard Tom Petty songs, but he hadn't quite come to hold that special place in my heart yet. And I think it's because at that point you hadn't started your podcast yet.
No, not at all.
His death, in a way, like I always called him like your little kicks. I think that almost started the listening to Tom Petty. And then, I mean, I don't know, this is what I've always assumed, is that event kind of is what reignited your passion for Tom Petty and made you realize how important of a songwriter he really is.
I think it was, and that's a really good observation. I'd sort of discovered and fallen in love with Wildflowers, I'd say probably about 2 years before. So probably about 2015 is when I'd gone back and started listening to catalog and hit Wildflowers. And I thought, oh my God, this guy's just absolutely something different. When he died, it was really and now I'm never going to get to see him. Mm-hmm. And it's that thing, it's that sort of, that little bit of sadness that you feel when you discover something just that little bit too late.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same with that. I never got to see Freddie Mercury sing live, right? I never got to see the Beatles. I didn't, so it's just that sort of sadness that's almost a bit silly, but it's just timing, right? And sometimes, the cosmic timing is wrong, and it was for me with Petty in that case. So,
and that's like, I think that my generation, and this is not the case for everyone, obviously, but younger generations seem to be shifting more towards like modern pop music, whatever. And it's to me, it's really unfortunate that someone as talented and important in the music world will be overlooked by so many people. Mm-hmm. Because if you think about it, to me, and like I said, I love music, and I have, like, the other day I met someone wasn't really a music person, so I had a hard time relating because obviously, like, the first thing I was about to say was, what kind of music do you listen to? And so it's so important to me, but I'm not as into I don't want to say economics of it, but like where everyone is, how well known everyone is. Yeah. And so to me, like, the Tom Petty should be up there, or like should be as well known almost as the Beatles, because while like his music is it's so special and so different, and he deserves to be acknowledged. He deserves that, because no one else, or there might be someone else who'll come along, but no one else is going to sound the way he did. And I don't know how to explain it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, he's so unique in the sense that it's really sad to think that a lot of people don't necessarily, when they think of like iconic rock and influential people, they don't immediately think of Tom Petty, which is sad, because he's a person who really deserves to be thought of in that way.
So, any final thoughts? Tom Petty, Honeybee, Wildflowers. We've had a great chat about music.
Yeah. I have 2 final notes that I was going to say, but then you started talking. I feel like I've talked the majority of the time because I talk too much. But 2 notes that I say is that, like, Honeybee especially, I think, in the song, I've played it in the pool room before, because we go and play pool a lot. I don't know if you mentioned that before. Big pool players, and a big pool room, for me especially, it's not necessarily, I don't think, oh, will people like this? Oh, will people like that? I'm thinking, will this give a pool vibe? And Honeybee gives a pool vibe. And so I brought one of my friends from soccer, London, out, and we have similar music tastes, but I recently got this app, and it, like, I'll maybe get you to have it. You can see what other people, what your friends were listening to.
Okay.
And then it compares your music compatibility. And so through that, I've learned she listens to a lot of My Chemical Romance, which is something like it's not my favorite band or not my favorite cup of tea out there, but it's whatever. But even London, as soon as the song came on, started tapping her foot and like going like that.
Yeah.
And she does like this kind of music, but it's also like, I think even if you've never heard Tom Petty before, in a setting like that, even if you don't like this kind of music, something in you will just be like, yes, yeah, this fits. And so that's my favorite bit. And then I was gonna say, I don't know why, I just kind of thought one of your questions was gonna be favorite line in the song.
Yeah, do it. Let's do it.
My favorite part is I cannot do an accent to save my life. Like anyone who listens to any of my dad's podcasts will know he's an expert at it. Do not expect that from me. But my favorite part is when he says buzz a while. I think either right before or like right before the bridge starts. Or is it right?
It's right. Yeah, it leads into the bridge and the solo. Yeah.
It leads into the bridge. Again, it's like the intro where such a small part of the song, but it's like, for me, it makes the song. That bit, buzz a while, again, it's a reminder of the tone of the song. It's perfect. I love the accent because he lays it on ever so slightly heavier in that line. And it's just, I can imagine him like turning and giving like a little side smirk to one of his bandmates and saying buzz a while to like his buddy who he's playing with, you know?
To Mike, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's my favorite line. 2 words, buzz a while, favorite line in the song.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much for doing this, kiddo. This has been a blast, and you got some good chops. I'll have to get you back on at some point, and we'll talk some more. Maybe I'll give you an assignment. I'll get you to listen to some stuff you've never heard, and I'll get your thoughts on some stuff you've never heard. Then.
Okay. I hope I wasn't too rambly or too boring.
Dude, I mean, anyone who listens to this podcast, they're used to rambling. It's usually me who's rambling. You were great.
See,
you did a wonderful job.
I think that's where I get it from. Really, I just blame you. Most of the things I think about, I'm like, oh, why do I do that? And I think about it, I'm like, you know what? Dad does it too, so it's fine.
Okay, Pennyheads, that's it for this week. Honeybee is a raucous, rollicking rocker with a fun groove, an insatiable riff, and some of the craziest lyrics Tom ever wrote. The beat may have started in Stan Lynch's hands and been passed to Dave Grohl for a brief moment, but when it got to Steve Ferroni, it really found its soul. For me, this is straight up one of the simplest and best rock riffs of all time, and there is not a single second of this song that I would change for anything. It's fantastic live, and a very easy 10 out of 10 for me. The Tom Petty Project is a proud member of the Deep Dive Podcast Network. Go check them out on Twitter at DeepDivePodNet. Tons of great stuff out there. I'm sure you'll find something you'd enjoy listening to. You can also check out my other podcasts, Seaside Pod Review Queen podcast, that I do with Mr. Randy Woods, who performs all the music in this podcast, and the Ultimate Catalog Clash that I co-host with the one and only Corey Morissette. We are currently talking about the first 20 years of Foo Fighters, so there's a Dave Grohl link there. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube at The Tom Petty Project, and on Twitter at Tom Petty Project. Go follow, like, subscribe as applicable, and as always, please leave a review or a rating if you haven't done that already. Go on, it takes seconds. Just go give me 5 stars, or 4. Give me 4 or 5. Don't give me 3 or 2. Keep talking to me on social media, and I will keep reading out your comments on the show. And as a weekly reminder, the Tom Petty Project is not affiliated with the Tom Petty Estate in any way. So when you're looking for Tom's music, please visit official streaming platforms or go to your local independent record seller to grab some physical media. Keep it local, folks. If you're looking for official merchandise, go to tompetty.com. And if you're looking for merchandise for this show, please go to tompettyproject.com. Don't forget to check out the Tom Petty Nation and Tom Petty Fans Forever groups on Facebook, if you're not already a member. Also, make sure you check out Tom Petty Radio on Channel 31 on Sirius XM. Until we meet again next week, keep listening to and sharing Tom's music. Try to be kind. Try to say I love you to someone at least once a day. Stay safe and healthy, and I'll be back with you next week to talk about track 8 from Wildflowers, the foreboding dual acoustic meditation, Don't Fade on Me. Bye-bye.